Overheard my brother's fiance planning to steal his $30,000 savings. When I exposed her at their party, he punched me and cut me off. A year later, he called to apologize after finding out the truth. My name is Alex. I'm in my early 30s. My older brother is David. He a few years older than me. Growing up, we were typical brothers. We weren't super close buddies who did everything together. But we weren't enemies either. We'd see each other at holidays and family get-togethers. Maybe grab a coffee or watch a game every now and then. Our parents are still together. We have a fairly big family around here. Aunts, uncles, cousins. We see them reasonably often. David started dating Amy about 2 years before they got engaged. She seemed fine when I met her. She was nice enough at family dinners. She had a regular job. David seemed happy with her, and our parents liked her too. They announced they were getting married about 8 months before the event. I'm going to tell you about David is pretty careful with his money. He always has been. He worked steady and saved money really hard. He had a specific plan had told me about a few times in the past year. He wanted to save up a good chunk of money, something like $30,000, so he could put a down payment on a house he wanted to buy soon. He kept this money in a special savings account he had for a long time, one that paid him extra money for keeping it there. The first sign that something wasn't right happened a couple of months after David and Amy said they were getting married. It was at a family barbecue at my parents' house. There were a lot of people there, spread out in the yard and on the porch. I was walking by an open window at the back of the house when I heard Amy talking inside. She was on the phone. I couldn't hear everything she said because the sound was cutting out, but I could hear enough to know what she was talking about, and it made me stop walking. She was talking about money. I heard her say $30,000. Then something about moving it, and then crypto. She laughed a little bit, a high laugh. He won't even notice for ages, she said. I lost the rest of the conversation, but the way she was talking made it sound like she was doing something sneaky with this money. She said something about our future, but it sounded more like she was using this money for her future, not something she and David were doing together, and she was taking it from him. I didn't hear everything, but hearing $30,000. Right after David had told me about his $30,000 house savings plan stuck in my head. Over the next week, I tried to casually talk to David about his money. I asked him how his house savings were going, if he was close to his goal. He acted weird, not like himself. He just said, "It's fine, everything's on track." This was strange because he usually liked to talk about how well he was doing with saving. I started paying more attention to things. Amy suddenly had a new expensive bracelet she hadn't had before. She also took a trip for a weekend with her friends that seemed expensive and came up quickly. If you looked at these things by themselves, they weren't proof of anything. But when you put them together with what I heard her say, they made me worried. I felt I had to tell David what I heard. I asked him to meet me for coffee somewhere we could talk privately. I told him what I overheard as calmly as I could. I said I heard Amy talking about $30,000, something about crypto and moving the money without him knowing. I told him where I was when I heard it and why it made me worried, especially with him saving for the house. He got angry right away and didn't believe me. He said I must have heard wrong. He said I was probably just jealous because he was getting married and settling down before me. He refused to even think that Amy would do something like that. He said Amy told him everything, including about their money. I pointed out the bracelet on the trip and asked where she got the money for those things and suggested he check his savings account balance to be sure he stopped talking about it completely. He said he trusted Amy 100% and that I needed to stop causing problems for no reason. I tried again a few days later. I sent him a text message explaining my worries again, hoping he'd read it. When he was alone and think about it, he just replied saying, "Leave it alone, Alex, you are wrong." After that, talking to each other became difficult. He didn't call me back quickly, and when we did talk, it was short and polite, but like we were far away from each other. I knew their engagement party was coming up soon. It was going to be a big event with all the family and friends. The thought of him marrying someone I truly believed had stolen a large amount of money from him, money he worked hard to save for a big life goal, felt really heavy and worrying. I felt like it was my duty as his brother to stop what I saw as a big mistake. A marriage starting with a lie. I thought about not doing anything but the idea of Amy getting away with taking his money and David marrying her. Maybe never finding out until it was too late felt wrong. The tension between us got worse as the party day got closer. David was clearly annoyed that I wouldn't drop the subject, and I was more and more sure I was right and frustrated that he wouldn't listen. The engagement party was at a hall they rented David's and Amy. Families were there and lots of their friends, maybe 80 people in total. There were going to be people giving speeches. David and Amy were walking around. People were saying congratulations. My parents had told me before the party to just be nice and not make any trouble, which made me feel even more unsure about what to do. Seeing David looking happy and not knowing with Amy right there, knowing what I thought she had done became too much to handle. As the night went on, I decided that waiting or trying to talk to him alone again was useless. He hadn't listened before. I felt like this situation needed to be brought out in front of everyone, hoping that shocking people and having their families and friends there would make David really listen or make Amy react in a way that showed she was guilty. When there was a quiet moment between the planned speeches when most people were sitting down, I was standing near the small stage area. I walked up onto it and picked up a microphone that someone had left there. For a second, everyone stopped talking and looked at me, confused. David and Amy were across the room, near the tables where their families were sitting. I took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone so everyone could hear me throughout the hall. I said my name and that I was David's brother. I said I needed to say something important about Amy. My parents looked shocked and upset from where they were sitting. David's head turned fast, and his face changed from confused to angry. I said clearly that I had heard Amy talking about stealing $30,000 of David's money. I said she mentioned putting it into crypto and that she planned to do it so he wouldn't notice. I said I had told David this, but he didn't believe me, and I felt I had to tell everyone because David deserved to know the truth about the person he was planning to marry and his family, and her family should know too. Right away, people started shouting and getting upset. Amy gasped really loud, then started crying and covering her face. David yelled my name and started pushing his way through the people towards the stage, his face bright red with anger. People from Amy's family were yelling at me. My own parents were waving their hands at me like crazy, silently begging me to stop. People in the crowd were talking to each other in low voices. Some were standing up to see better. David reached the stage area. He didn't even try to talk quietly. As soon as he was close, he swung his arm and punched me hard in the face. The punch made me stumble back. He yelled that I was lying, that I was ruining everything, that I was crazy. Her mother was trying to comfort her. David told me to get out, that he didn't want me there, didn't want me in his life. Security people who were hired for the party came over quickly because of all the noise and the physical fight. David pointed at me and told them to remove me. Amy family was also telling them to get me out. My parents looked really sad and stressed, but they did not step in to protect me. They seemed worried about calming things down and dealing with the shock of the punch. I put the microphone down. There was no point in saying anything else with everyone like that. And after being hit, the security people grabbed my arms and led me firmly. But they weren't too rough towards the exit. As they were taking me out, David kept yelling things at me from the stage area. Amy was still crying very loudly, making it seem like she was the poor person who was attacked for no reason. I made eye contact with my parents for a second before I was outside. Their faces showed they were shocked, embarrassed, and very upset. I was outside the hall by myself. My face hurt where David had punched me. I walked away from the building. My phone started ringing almost right away. It was my mother. Her voice was shaking. She didn't yell, but she was clearly very upset. She said I had caused a terrible scene, that I had embarrassed everyone, especially David and Amy, and that I had provoked David into a physical reaction. She repeated what David had said, that I was trying to ruin his happiness and had made him hit me by making false claims in front of everyone. She said David was sure I was lying and that he was very hurt that I would do something like that. She said David had told her he didn't want to talk to me anymore. And because of what happened, especially after the physical part of the argument, it was probably best if I didn't come to family events for a while. It was clear that my parents were taking David's side, focusing on how my actions led to the fight and prioritizing, calming things down and not messing up the wedding plans. Over finding out the truth about Amy, other family members called me too. Some were shocked by the punch in the scene. Some still agreed with David. A few asked me questions, but mostly told me I should say sorry and try to fix things, which I saw no way of doing. When I believed I was in the right. About Amy's actions and David's reaction had been physical and extreme. David didn't answer my calls or texts. He had basically cut me out of his life after the fight. The weeks after the engagement party felt lonely. My face was bruised for a few days. I wasn't included in any of the family talks about the wedding. When I did see family members, things were awkward. There was a clear tension. David and Amy had told everyone their version of what happened, saying I had made up a mean story for no reason, just to cause trouble, and had caused David to react the way he did. My parents didn't completely stop talking to me, but they kept their distance. They were clearly stressed by the family problems and didn't want to mess up their relationship with David, especially after the very public fight. My worries about the stolen money seemed less important than the trouble I had caused at the party. In the physical fight that resulted, everyone focused on what I did, David's reaction, and the perceived damage they had inflicted on David and Amy. The plans for the wedding kept going. Nobody in the family that I knew of asked David to check his bank accounts or asked Amy about what I had said about the money. Even after the big scene at the engagement party and David cutting me off, the wedding happened a few months later, just as planned. I didn't get an invitation, and I didn't expect one. I stayed home that day. Life went on. I focused on my job and spent time with my own friends. They knew what was going on with my family and listened to me, mostly without telling me what to do about the big family split. David and Amy didn't contact me. My relationship with my parents became careful. We avoided talking about anything difficult. We knew David wasn't talking to me, but we didn't talk about it much. I was watching David's life from far away, hearing only short general updates about him and Amy through my parents. Nothing that suggested they were having any problems. It's now been about 6 months since David and Amy got married. I still haven't talked to David directly since the engagement party disaster. He doesn't contact me at all. My parents sometimes give me quick updates, usually about little things. Recently, though, the way my mother talked about things started to change a bit. She sounded like she was holding something back, being careful. She mentioned that David seemed stressed that he and Amy had been arguing. She didn't say exactly what was going on at first, just said they were having problems in their marriage. This was the first time I heard about any real trouble between them since they got married. A few days ago, my mother called me specifically, which was not the usual quick call. She sounded very upset. She told me that David had found messages on Amy's phone. She said the messages were with other men. My mother didn't know exactly how many, but she said Amy had been talking to 3 different guys in a way that was clearly not okay for someone who was married. She said one of the guys was someone David knew, someone he saw often at the gym. My mother said David found the messages unexpectedly. He showed them to Amy and asked her about them. They had a big argument. My mother said Amy didn't say she hadn't talked to the man, but she tried to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal or said it was David's fault. For some reason, my mother didn't know how much they had talked or how long it had been going on. She said David was very hurt and angry. He was upset not just because she was cheating, but also because she had lied to him. Things between David and Amy right now are very bad. They are living together, but constantly fighting. This news about Amy's cheating has spread to other family members too. It's caused a new wave of shock and people talking. But right now, everyone is focused on the cheating. The $30,000 theft I had warned about hasn't been brought up as being connected to this new problem. In the family conversations I've heard about, David is dealing with the immediate problem of his wife cheating on him. The marriage, which was more important to him than his relationship with me, and which he went through with even after I warned him, is now in big trouble because of what Amy did. The bad results of him deciding to trust Amy completely and not believe my worries are starting to show, even though it's a different lie than the one I talked about. My problem is not about deciding if I should contact David about the cheating. That's not possible because he cut me off. It's about the whole situation. I am still cut off from my brother because I tried to tell everyone his fiance stole his money. Now, 6 months after the marriage that cost me that relationship, he is finding out his wife has been lying to him in a big way, which shows I was right about her not being a good person. Even if the new lie is different, the way the family acts is changing a little bit as more people see what Amy is really like. The main problem from the engagement party and him cutting me off is still there. I am watching the bad results happen from far away, still outside the family circle David is in right now. Update 1: Thank you to everyone who read my first post and share their thoughts. A few things came up more than once that I can explain better. Many people asked if I had any solid proof besides just hearing Amy's conversation. The answer is no. My decision to speak up at the party was based only on what I heard her say, plus the way David suddenly acted weird about his savings and Amy spending money in ways that didn't seem to fit her job. I couldn't see David's bank accounts, and I had no way to check Amy's money or if she had crypto. I tried to get David to check his own accounts, but he refused. Not having solid proof was a big reason why David and the family didn't believe me and why they saw my actions as just making things up to cause trouble. The conversation I overheard was specific enough, mentioning the amount of money, how she was moving it, crypto, and that she thought David wouldn't notice. This made it sound very serious in the situation, but it was still just something I heard her say to someone else. Not her telling me she did it, or a paper trail showing she took the money. Some people asked if anyone else could have heard Amy talking. The party was loud, and she was inside near a window that was open while I was outside. It's possible someone else was close enough to hear, but they were probably busy talking to others. I didn't see anyone else react like they heard what I did. It's also possible I only heard the parts of her conversation that were loudest or clearest. What I wrote in the first post is based on the exact words and the situation that I heard that made me worried about David Money's situation before this. Like I said, he was careful and saved well. He didn't need money. That's part of why $30,000 going missing might not be noticed right away unless he was looking at that specific savings account balance often, which he might not have been doing. Maybe only when he got closer to buying the house. Amy had a normal job. Her pay seemed average. Not like she would suddenly have extra money for expensive jewelry or trips without using money from David or money they shared. Several comments wondered if it would have been better to talk to David alone instead of speaking up in front of everyone. As I explained in the first post, I had already tried talking to David privately several times after I heard Amy. I told him my worries and suggested he check his money every single time. He got angry and didn't believe me, refusing to even think that I might be right. My reason for speaking up publicly, which I know caused a lot of problems, was a last attempt to get through to him and the wall he had put up. I hoped the shock would make him look into the issue or make Amy react in a way that showed she was guilty. It was a big risk, and it didn't work out the way I wanted. After writing the first post and reading the different comments, some that agreed Amy sounded bad, and some that thought I handled it badly, thought about where I stood. Nothing had changed since I posted. David was still not talking to me. The marriage had happened, and now I was hearing through other family members that Amy was cheating. The main problem I wrote about in the first post was watching the bad results of David's decision happen from far away after what I did caused him to cut me off. I didn't need to take any immediate action about the cheating itself since I don't talk to David. What I thought about doing after the first post wasn't about what to do about David marriage problems, but more about what to do about my own place in the family and with David now that more problems with Amy had come out. Some people suggested reaching out to David now that he might be more willing to listen because of his marriage troubles. But when I thought about what happened over the past year, my tries to warn him were not just ignored. He got angry and punched me while completely ending our relationship because of them. What I did at the engagement party, even though it was my choice, caused a deep and public break between us. David made his choice very clear back then. He chose Amy and believing her side over believing me, his brother, and over having a relationship with me. He showed this again by getting married and not having me there. Even though finding out Amy cheated might make him trust her less, it doesn't automatically fix the damage to our brotherly bond or the trust he broke by cutting me off so easily. My action, which cost me a lot, was an attempt to stop him from being seriously wronged. His reaction was to put his relationship with the person I thought was wronging him first, to the point of cutting me out. Thinking about all this history, trying to start talking again now, especially by saying something like "I told you so," even without saying the words, didn't feel like it would help. It would likely just make him angry again. Or at best he might only listen because he's having problems now. Being cut off wasn't just a short time where we didn't talk. It was a clear statement of how he felt back then. Thinking about it, I decided that trying to contact him or fix things because he was having problems now wouldn't lead to anything good. Based on these thoughts, decided to keep things the way they were with David, meaning no contact. I did not try to reach out to him after hearing about Amy cheating. I didn't send him a message, call him, or try to meet him. What I did was basically nothing when it came to talking directly to David and Amy. I also decided to keep talking to my parents the way I had been, which was limited. I kept answering their calls and messages, but didn't ask for a lot of details about David problems or say what I thought about Amy cheating or how it related to my first warning. I listened to what they chose to tell me about the problems in David's marriage without saying anything that could sound like I was happy I was right or trying to prove myself. When other family members talked to me, I did the same. I said I had heard there were problems between David and Amy and didn't say much more, avoiding talking about what happened in the past or what I did. The immediate result of doing this was that things stayed exactly the same with David. He didn't contact me at all. He didn't react to me not contacting him, probably because he was dealing with the big problems in his marriage. My limited talks with my parents stayed difficult, but okay. They were clearly upset about David's situation and maybe a little unsure because of what had happened before, but they didn't try to fix things between David and me. They also didn't directly say that Amy's lying now proved my earlier warning about her character was right. The family conversations, from what I heard, stayed focused on the cheating as the main problem. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since I wrote the last update. That means it's now about a year since David and Amy got married, and roughly a year and a half since I first heard Amy talking about the $30,000. A lot has happened since David found out about Amy cheating through her texts. After David discovered the messages and talked to her about it, things became very bad in the place they lived together. According to what I've heard indirectly from my mother and one cousin who still talks to me sometimes, they had many loud fights. Amy didn't move out right away, but living together was very difficult, full of tension, and they barely talked unless it was to argue more. Details about Amy's messages with the other men slowly became known, at least among the family members who knew what was going on. It wasn't just a few harmless texts. The messages showed she was having ongoing wrong relationships with more than one person. The guy from the gym who David apparently asked about it at first said he didn't talk to Amy much, but he had to admit he was involved when David showed him the messages. This was another layer of hurt for David coming from someone he thought was his friend. Within a few weeks after David found out, Amy did move out of his place. It wasn't like they filed for divorce right away, but they were no longer living together because they couldn't get along. The marriage wasn't officially over at that moment, but the life they shared stopped. People said David was very upset, not just because she cheated, because he realized the woman he had stood up for and married was capable of lying and hurting him like that on purpose. What's interesting is that with the clear proof that Amy was a liar because she cheated, some family members who had taken David's side against me at the engagement party started to see things differently. Or at least they stopped being so sure that I was completely wrong when I warned them about the money. My mother especially has talked to me more openly. She hasn't directly said sorry for not believing me or for agreeing with David when he cut me off. But when she talks about Amy now, you can hear that she doesn't approve and is disappointed in her. She has made comments about how David should have listened to his gut feeling, though she still doesn't directly say he should have listened to me specifically or about the money. Even with this small change in how some family members see Amy and maybe quietly agreeing that she wasn't who she seemed to be, my direct relationship with David has not gotten better. He is still focused on dealing with the problems caused by his marriage falling apart because of the cheating. He is handling the practical things that come with separating, figuring out what to do with their stuff, and dealing with how much the lying hurt him. My life is still separate from David's problems with his marriage. I hear about what's happening through the few family members I still talk to, and am sticking to my decision not to contact him first. I have seen the results of David's choices play out. He ignored a warning about his fine character, married her even after the warning caused problems with me, and is now having serious problems because of that same person's character which showed up as cheating. The situation shows clearly how ignoring serious worries about whether a person is honest can lead to big problems, even if those problems aren't exactly what you expected from the first warning. Small update, it's now been a few days since the last update. After all that time with no contact, something unexpected happened. A few days ago, David called me. He didn't immediately start talking about everything that happened. There was some quiet at first. Then he started talking about the engagement party, about what I said and how he reacted. He said he was wrong. He said cutting me out of his life was a mistake. He apologized for not believing me when I tried to warn him about Amy. He also apologized for getting physical with me at the party, punching me. He said his reaction was completely out of line, even if he was angry and shocked at the time. He explained that he felt like I kept pushing it, making his private business public after he had already told me to stop, and that fueled his anger in that moment, leading him to punch me. He apologized for everything he did that pushed me away and broke our relationship. He then started talking about the money, the $30,000. He said after he found out Amy was cheating, he started looking into other things that had seemed strange, including his money situation. He started asking Amy more direct questions, digging into her stories. He had given the $30,000 to her earlier. Amy had told him she needed a large loan, around $30,000 because her friend needed emergency surgery that she couldn't afford and Amy wanted to help her. David believed her and transferred the money to her. He thought it was a loan she or her friend would pay back. He said Amy had made him promise not to tell anyone about the loan because she said her friend was private and didn't want anyone knowing about the surgery or needing money. That's why David hadn't told me or anyone else about giving her such a large amount. Through his digging after the affair came out, he recently discovered that the story about the friend's surgery was a complete lie Amy made up to get the money from him. There was no friend who needed surgery. She had just taken the money he gave her and used it for her own purposes, which likely involved the crypto I had overheard about. He now understands that my warning about the money while I thought she had taken it secretly was pointing to her being dishonest with his funds and using methods like crypto to hide where the money went. Even if the first transfer was him willingly giving it to her based on her lie, that he won't even notice for ages as Part 1 overheard now makes sense to him. She meant he wouldn't notice the money was gone permanently or that the loan wasn't being paid back because the surgery story was fake and she had no intention of returning it, possibly hiding it through crypto channels. He told me he confronted Amy about this too. After finding out the truth, she admitted the lie about the surgery. He demanded she give the $30,000 back. According to David, Amy is refusing to give the money back. She's saying it was a gift or that she doesn't have it anymore or making other excuses. So the money is gone. She lied to get it and she is not giving it back. But I am pretty sure it's in some sort of crypto wallet or site. Hearing all this from David after so long felt strange. He admitted he was wrong about me, about Amy, about how he reacted. It wasn't a happy conversation, just him laying out what he had discovered and admitting his mistakes. And the reality of Amy's dishonesty that went beyond just the cheating. I still don't know if I should forgive him after learning all that.